Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Last Newsdesk on the Left. I am your host, MacPaladin, and with me is the crew. Sound off, everybody.
Sound.
Hello.
Adam?
Yeah, hello. Just wanted to trying to avoid the crosstalk.
Okay. Twilight?
Yo.
Who was it that cross-talked with Kevin?
That was me. I'm Patty. I'll just go back in my corner now.
With your conical cap?
Yes.
Fine, Doodles. Don't be on my lap. And then, of course, we've got the Galax. Don't forget him.
I know you're petty, but that doesn't mean you have to crosstalk about it.
I'm gonna fucking kick him into the yard first.
That's a quote tweet right there.
Yes.
We had 6 people waiting, but now only 4 concurrent viewers. What is going on?
Well, it was slow to launch, but now it's launched and we're all live now.
I might want to pull the logo up higher because the bottom piece is missing.
It looks good to me, though.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you put it up higher, you'll be able to see the word Crunchyroll.
That's the anyway.
Anyhow.
All right. So allegedly we have a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking to you about this abomination that is scrolling around the screen like the DVD logo on your old DVD player.
Don't make me add animations.
or a screensaver that was probably not your favorite.
You'll just have it bouncing around the logo.
No, I remember that.
Yes.
Yes, or blinking 12 o'clock if you're old enough to have had a VCR.
Yes.
All right. Well, Adam, let's just pound this down a hole while we're at it.
All right. I guess we're flipping the script. Considering we didn't really talk anything, we were all politics last week, but politics is kind of dying down.
There's stuff going on, but that can wait a minute. This is
Oh.
important to us, and that's all.
Yeah.
Honestly, politics can get really, really exhausting after a while.
Anyway, so.
Right.
AT&T has been making a lot of moves lately, and the latest of which just happened a few hours ago when they've formally announced, along with Sony, Funnyroll is going to be happening again, basically. Funimation, Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll is being bought by Funimation
For $1.175 billion.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of money for Crunchyroll, more than I would have paid, but
400 to 600 million more.
But the implications behind this particular merger are very big, especially for the Western anime apparatus, let's say, because
yes.
Okay. First of all, no, this isn't. This isn't a monopoly. If only because Netflix is still a huge player in anime.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll get to hashtag cancel Netflix in a minute. Yeah.
But and there's also Sentai Filmworks, High Dive,
Viz.
Viz.
Although they're pretty much working everywhere at this point.
Well, Viz has multiple agreements everywhere. That's mainly because if you're Viz actually had their own dedicated streaming service. A couple of
coffee.
Yeah. Well, who remembers Neon Alley? It's my question.
Vaguely.
I do. I remember it.
Yeah, it's like, clearly this wasn't successful because it basically got subsumed into Hulu.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember it's also its own thing, and they have a rather substantial anime
Right, and
repertoire.
this deal is going to be playing into that because Hulu was basically the Crunchyroll replacement for Funimation.
Yeah.
After that deal ended, they hooked up with Hulu, and there's a lot in the air right now because Crunchyroll was working closely with Adult Swim, specifically the Toonami division. Now we've got clarification from that end. Jason DeMarco has said that all of their co-productions have they're still going to go through because, well, here's the thing about business still, if you already signed a contract,
you're pretty much stuck to that contract.
Yeah, it's like, so the Blade Runner anime, the Shenmue anime, that One Piece clone. Trying to remember, I think there was a fourth one.
Yeah, I think those were the three they announced. I don't know if they announced a fourth one. Maybe they did. I forgot about it, but
yeah,
those basically are going to go through no matter what. And short term, I don't think there's going to be any major chaotic moves.
Well, it's also Crunchyroll never became the major repository for Toonami shows that everyone was expecting it to become.
Well, maybe that's because of a very important reason.
It's not. I'm not sure if it's related to this, but really the only Crunchyroll show I can think of that ended up on the block was the first season of Mob Psycho 100.
Yeah.
There was apparently some sort of licensing problem behind the second season, but that's not too surprising because a lot of anime productions have multiple entities behind them.
Committees.
Yeah, the committee system.
Yeah.
And this is a big reason why this particular alliance isn't really going to affect anything actually in Japan, at least on the surface, because that would be ignoring the other player the other Sony player in this game, because because Funimation is actually jointly owned by Aniplex these days. It's this joint venture between Sony Music's Aniplex and Sony Pictures. And this actually does matter because
Sony Pictures Television. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because, for example, don't expect PlayStation into this equation going through. At least that's not a given because, Sony Music acts independently of the PlayStation group. This is why Fate Grand Order is not on PlayStation, it's on mobile.
Well, the fact that it's definitely the kind of game that you're more likely to see on mobile.
But it's also Sony Music has actually published games on multiple platforms. Sony Music does what Sony Music wants to do, is what I'm saying. Likewise, PlayStation Studios, Sony Interactive, they're their own thing. So if Sony Interactive wants to get in on the anime stuff, they're probably going to have to pay for it. And corporate conglomerates can be weird.
Yeah.
It's not
Japanese corporate conglomerates.
I could give you other examples, like, for example, Street Fighter. Street Fighter is specifically owned by Capcom USA. And this matters because that, like for licensing, you have to go to that specific branch to do business with Street Fighter, not Capcom Japan. And there are other things where it's vice versa. And these distinctions do matter. Because, licensing IP, they are often registered to that specific entity and not the parent company. And, there are other questions around the new Funroll Alliance, what's going to happen with the players. Like, honestly, they can throw them both out as far as I'm concerned. Funimation and Crunchyroll's players have been notoriously garbage for fucking eons.
But Adam,
I think we should call
people will rip their videos, and they can't have that.
I think we should call it Funky Roll.
I don't give that.
Charitable, like they still have problems with their web player. Playing high definition stuff in the year of 2020. Like, it's fair. Like, I don't know anyone who says, "Oh yeah, the Funimation, the Funimation player or the Crunchyroll player, they're good." It's just I think
the epitome of stability.
Yeah, and they tend to. Which one tends to be more shit might depend on the platform. Like, I think Funimation may be more shit on, like, say, the PlayStation 4 or whatever. Honestly, just in general, that their actual technology isn't the best in terms of streaming stuff. Also worth mentioning, Crunchyroll owns Verve. So we don't really know what's going to happen there because Verve is a alliance service, not just with like various Time Warner or Warner Media properties, but I think like Viacom's part of that. There's some classic Nick stuff there, like among other things. So there's a lot of concerns over this.
Actually, I think the Nick's Black channel was taken down with the Boomerang channel.
See, that probably was a clue there. That this was going. Though I will say that the reports were happening beforehand. It's just all this is now official, and the big concern that's running through everyone's minds now is monopoly. Like I said, it's not a monopoly, but you've got two of the biggest Western entities combining into one entity. And it's more than just a partnership this time. And we don't exactly know how that partnership is going to play out. And how concerning it is. It's hard to say. Because people can be paradoxical about it. And it's actually really frustrating because, they fucking scream and holler about, the Funroll Alliance, let's say, squashing competition. But, they also fucking complain about, Funimation content being thrown off of Crunchyroll.
I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword of being a consumer, is that, guess what? Monopolies are awfully convenient for consumers a lot of the time.
Yeah. And that's my core frustration with all this. You can't have it both ways. It's like with the streaming wars in general. Look, you either have to be happy with Netflix having all of the things or most of the things, or you're gonna have to fucking pay for 50 fucking channels or services or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. More competition means more options, but it means more fucking fragmentation. We saw, if you want to call streaming a cable rerun, fine. But it's going to work in that direction. You're going to get so many more channels, but you're going to get so much more fragmentation with the audience. There's a reason why, Gilligan's Island got canceled with 15 million viewers as an audience. That was considering a soul-crushingly destroying prospect in the 60s. But you put that even
with the fact that they went to fucking space on an animated series or something.
Well, that was later. That was in the animated series.
Okay, I'm joking, but yes.
My point is, audience numbers that you got in the 60s, the 70s, even up to the 80s started dying down just because more options means less audience. That's just a thing that will happen. And and yes, it's going to cause a rise in piracy just because if Disney wants to have a streaming service, there's nobody to stop them. If Warner Media wants to have a streaming service, nobody's to stop them. As far as actual regulatory issues, nothing's going to come of that.
No,
I don't think.
Nothing. Probably not.
Yeah, not even under a new administration, because once again,
there's really nothing that would trigger any antitrust issues or anything.
Yeah, because we are talking about a niche segment that.
They have a monopoly on the anime market.
Right, and and even then, it's the anime licensing and streaming. It's like there's nothing preventing a company from hooking up with, say, Sentai Filmworks, who's another question mark in this equation, because Sentai Filmworks is a active partner with Crunchyroll.
Yeah, if you have a monopoly on something that's small enough, no one's going to care.
Right, or specific enough.
Yeah.
Size is important here, and that kind of segues into the second big thing AT&T did this past week, and by far the biggest move, and that is they have announced that their entire 2021 movie slate may be going to streaming. And I quantify this because apparently this idea was very, very rushed, and
I think it's going to be a will and not a may at this point, because when you've done something like this, you can't go back on it.
Well, no, it's more. No, hear me out. It's more. No, it's because they didn't fucking contact their partners. They didn't, and that has legal consequences.
Yeah.
Like legendary.
Thank you, arcane distribution laws.
Yes.
Although
this stuff is actually
said that it's going to be hard to find a way around this. There has to be an outright breach of the contract here, because technically this isn't simply just moving everything onto streaming. This is moving to streaming, but also a 1 month theatrical window instead of a 90 day theatrical window like traditional.
That still may
a 90-month theatrical window would sure be a thing.
Okay, that's still a problem, because
you're going to need to have a specific, like, what is the breach of the contract here?
Well, no. Okay, let me lay it out before you chime in, because it's not just production company. It's fucking actors, it's directors, it's producers. There are all sorts of entities behind every fucking big tentpole movie. And you can't just, it's not, and apparently, they did special dispensation for Wonder Woman 84. They actually contacted Gal Gadot and others about.
And they gave them extra funding. What was it, $10 million? I think I saw.
Yeah, there was extra stuff here, and they didn't do that with the other movies, and that's going to be a problem because, like I said, it's not just Legendary Pictures. It's various media personalities. Christopher Nolan. He's not actually a part of this conversation. He's particularly upset, and it's actually partially Christopher Nolan's fault. We are here because he was the one who insisted that his cinematic masterpiece Tenet could only be experienced on IMAX theaters. And they opened up the IMAX theaters. Nobody came because nobody wanted to die for a movie.
Especially
that's sort of the interesting thing here, which is that the movie theater complex, or whatever, is easily at its weakest negotiating point in ever, probably.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that people do not want to die to see a movie or to die to get a big thing. They do not want to go into a movie theater, an enclosed space with not a lot of room for social distancing, especially in some of the older movie theaters, because there are a lot of movie theaters that are particularly of a very older age in some parts of the country. And go into these places and watch a movie theater when you know for a fact that being close with other people in an enclosed space is a recipe for disaster at the moment.
Plus, a lot of people have been getting in a lot of good practice of watching movies at home on their couch, in an area they're comfortable with, snacks that cost a reasonable amount of money and are whatever they choose them to be, and not like $5 for a single size serving of fucking snow caps or something.
But I will say this. Once the vaccinations and everything else is all set up, probably by the back half of 2021, I do think people are going to want to see movies at the movie theater.
Oh no, I'm not saying that the movie, like, people won't want to see the movie theater. I just think that people have now had a lot of experience with, okay, but maybe what if I don't want to that time?
Here's the thing, though. With that kind of experience also comes, I'm sick and tired of watching movies at home. I want to see them in front of a big screen with massive surround sound that perhaps...
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying the movie theaters won't come back to some extent. I'm just saying that I fully expect that there are going to continue to be some people who will at least sometimes prefer to see some movies at home, and the industry might have to deal with that.
There were people probably like that before the pandemic. But the people who actually actively wanted to go to theaters and everything else couldn't because of the COVID, and once COVID is no longer an issue, they'll want to go back. So the only question is will movie theaters exist? Will these chains continue to exist when that moment comes?
Because there is a significant chain that has basically shut down, is there not?
Well, most of them have kind of either shut down or everything else, but it's not like it's the difference between shutting down and not existing, as in going belly up. So it's like, does AMC go bankrupt because they can't stay open during this? Or does, like Cinemark or Regal or, that type of thing? That's the only question here. If there are theaters at the back half of 2021 when everybody's all juiced up on the vaccine and can go out and go places without worrying about getting sick and dying, well, they're going to want to go out because they're tired of being kept in. Cabin fever is going to be a real thing. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it'll do enough permanent harm to the effective monopoly that movie theaters have on movies that it'll be an option more.
I think the answer to whether this is going to be a real industry thing and not just simply AT&T trying to force people to get to HBO Max without any questions asked here. What does Disney do tomorrow? How does Disney put out its theatrical projects next year? They're going to announce tomorrow. Tomorrow's their investor day. Do they put what looks like they're going to do, and that put just some theatrical releases on to Disney Plus, or do they just go full blown? Because if they just do this theatrical project and this theatrical project while also keeping theatrical projects for the theaters, then this is simply going to be a case of Warner Brothers trying to get people to HBO Max desperately and nothing more. But if they go the opposite direction and shock everybody by doing what Warner Brothers did, then we're going to have a problem. What?
No, Disney is not going to do that.
But no, I was going to say, Disney's not going to do that. So basically what Warner Brothers did is get over their skis, not just because of the fact that actors, directors, and production companies and all that are pissed, but simply because they've decided to do it for the full year, and we all know that the back half of 2021 is likely going to be an explosion in terms of people going back to the movie theater.
Well, and I've also articulated this before, but this is like the first big move HBO Max has done. Like this has been the one of the problems with HBO Max. The other is it's really into that half-baked AT&T mindset. You know, they rushed the launch of HBO Max so fast they bypassed Roku devices.
Yeah,
you know, they're still not on Roku devices, the most popular streaming device out there. You know, we're not dealing with people here. Christmas. You know, and like I'm not sure if they're on Amazon Fires yet either. Like,
I think they're on Fire. They're just not on Roku.
Yeah, I mean, this is basic stuff they should have had outlined and in place before the thing launched.
Well, technically, to be fair, Peacock also wasn't on Roku at launch, but at the same time, they understood that they needed to be on Roku, and they cut a deal, and they are now on Roku.
Right.
HBO Max has not done that.
And here's the thing: HBO Max has been a thing for what, 6 months now, and they're still not, and they still haven't ironed that out. And they wonder why their sub numbers may be lagging a bit.
Although they're certainly happy with where they're at, because of course they are.
That's what they say, but
they're saying, and they're seeing what they want to see.
Well,
frankly, that's the case. I think they're just seeing what they want to see.
No, I think that's a lie, and they are not happy with the numbers, which is why they did this. Because here's the other problem with HBO Max: they don't have a killer app. They don't have a Mandalorian. They don't have The Boys. They don't have Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, they don't. They didn't launch with a original property of massive note.
Yeah,
I mean, say what you will about Saved by the Bell, it is a thing for them. They also have done some reunion specials. They were supposed to do a Friends reunion special, but that's kicked off the next year. They did a Fresh Prince reunion special. They have done small things, right? But the problem for HBO Max is that they needed to have a big thing. Disney Plus had a big thing with The Mandalorian.
Right.
They also have that library. You gotta have a little bit of issues with the library content. And then above everything else, the name.
Yeah, the name was confusing, but that's getting less confusing because, well, they're phasing out all the other HBO stuff.
Right, but the problem is that when it comes to branding, I think the HBO brand was not the right brand to use, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. It's that the HBO brand versus the Warner Brothers brand, like the studio that they have for original content that they do have is Warner Max. That should have been the name of the freaking out, honestly.
Probably, but yeah, and that does lead into another problem. You know, the HBO name leads to HBO pricing. This is the most expensive of the streaming service.
That's probably the biggest impediment at the end of the day. It's that it's $14.95 a month compared to Disney, which is $9.95. I think it's probably $9.95, might be smaller than that. I think it's somewhere in there, but it's single digits.
Yeah,
Netflix is like $11.95. This is $14.95. So this is more expensive than Netflix.
Yeah, depending on the deal you have. Like,
right, but yeah, I mean the bigger deal probably still HBO Max. I think, if I recall correctly, is more expensive than Netflix.
Yes, which
it's the problem here.
And also in other AT&T news, like I said, there was going to be a lot of AT&T ranting this week because they made a lot of things. They are selling off DirecTV, or they are attempting to sell off.
Which, to be frank, was probably the original sin of this company, because satellite television is, let's be frank here, a dying business. It is, if it's between cable, satellite, and the internet, you would choose cable or the internet over satellite, and that's been the problem. It's been squeezed out not just by cable, but now the streamers as well, and then you have a dying product here. In the meantime, AT&T has valued this company, which, by the way, they bought for like $50 billion, at $15 billion, and there are only 2 companies that are willing to pay that price, and not the company that everybody thought was going to buy it, which was a private equity firm called Apollo Global Management, but it was another private equity firm and a blank check company that were the only 2 that were willing to pay $15 billion or more. Now, a blank check company is basically buy something without any plan whatsoever.
Fine.
Which is fun, honestly. So, and of course, you can't have a situation where Dish buys DirecTV because antitrust, hello, that's a real monopoly right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, AT&T has, at the very least, $130 to $160 billion in long-term debt. They're trying to sell their way out of it. They can't sell their way out of it at this point, because even if you add maybe at most maybe $20 billion and then the $1.175 billion here with Crunchyroll, that's still only $21 billion, and you still will have over $100 billion in long-term debt still left. And that's that's only the low estimate from what we have. They might have more debt and we don't even know it. So it's like, once again, we have a company, and there have been plenty of examples of this in the past, where they think that they could be a big, giant conglomerate that could stretch into multiple facets of society instead of the core business that they're focused on. And then the core business is lagging. The wireless business is not as robust as they would like to want, considering they're getting crushed by both T-Mobile and Verizon. So you have the core business crumbling, and then these other businesses that they tried to get into in order to make themselves bigger to try to counteract that. DirecTV, crumbling business. They're going to sell that off, or at least sell a significant stake of it. And then the media business that they wanted to go into because they know that the way you get things going is through the content media business. Unfortunately, the amount of debt that they accumulated getting into that business is preventing them from doing what they want to do. And in order to pay off that long-term debt, you've got to shed jobs. You've got to perhaps put content projects that you might want to do to the side, freeze them. And then, stupidly, perhaps in the midst of all that, you sell off pieces that are profitable and sell off pieces that you could potentially use to help yourself.
Yeah.
So now you have a situation where, yeah, you could pay off all the debt. What do you have left? Because with this Warner Brothers HBO Max move, you've probably pissed off all of Hollywood and questioned your intentions going forward. You may say that it's only for 1 year, but how is anybody going to know that? Like, what if you look at the numbers for these initial things that you're going to do, starting with Wonder Woman on Christmas? What if you look at all of these and say, hey, this is the way to go? You know, they could easily think that. So now Hollywood's questioning your intentions, and you may have some really good people at Warner Brothers and at your parts of your company, but your intentions are questioned. You may be forced to not do things. You may be forced to tell people who work for you no in terms of projects they want to do. And then at the same time, you have put the entire future of your company on this service right here. And it's not the phone service. It's this HBO Max service. You put the entire future of the media company, the entire future of it on this one service. If it doesn't succeed in the way you want it to, long term, you're screwed. You know,
it's not helped by the fact that AT&T, in buying Time Warner, racked up a shitload of debt.
Yeah.
That's the ticking time bomb here.
Yeah. you decided to get into the business through the debt way, thinking that, oh, it's not going to be a lot, and we can run this company greatly. I mean, we're not like those young .com nerds from Northern Virginia who thought that they could run Time Warner. No, we're American Telephone and Telegraph. We've been around since the 1890s. We know shit. Well, we were broken up by Reagan, but hey, we know shit. And I know I just cursed in the last couple of minutes, but I'm sorry about that. But it's like AT&T thought that they could run this company even though they had immense amount of debt, because they thought that they knew how to do things. And then all of a sudden they figured out, oh my God, we got this buttload of debt here. We got to sell. And the thing is that everybody has debt. Disney has debt. Apple has debt. Everybody has at least tens of billions of dollars in debt. But the thing is that, first of all, most of these companies have a plan to manage that debt. Now, that may include big layoffs and everything else and other things, but they do so in a way that is planned, that is put together. And also you have other parts of the company that can help you withstand that big load of debt over time and help you pay it back without having to make major hair-tearing out moves. AT&T does not have that because they are not well-versed in the media business. They bought their way into the business. Now, of course, AT&T has had some mixes in the past with going outside of the core phone business, but they eventually got out of it. Like, once upon a time, they had a cable company called AT&T Broadband. Mm-hmm. That only lasted a couple of years, and then they sold it off to Comcast because they realized we can't do this. We can't keep up. So it's like, this is quickly becoming a situation where eventually AT&T is probably going to have to look at getting out of the business because they cannot, sustain this. They cannot simply sell things off, fire a bunch of creative people, and then think that they can make a profitable, successful business. That's just not how it works. You can't fire your way out of debt. You can't fully sell your way out of debt unless you have a strong, firm, long-term plan that at least feels like it could be successful. The problem for AT&T is that they have made it clear that they are desperate to get people to HBO Max because they know for a fact that because they have put so much of the future of Warner Media into HBO Max that if HBO Max does not succeed, that screws up everything. And in order for people to get to HBO Max, they have made the decision to basically destroy the theatrical window as we've known it, to be that studio that decides to go there and to take the hit. And that hit includes pissing off actors, directors, producers, production companies and shingles, and also the movie theater and also the theaters themselves. So you basically pissed off the entire town, and you've pissed off creative people who are really, really skeptical about going to a streaming first strategy. Because
the fact that there's been no harm whatsoever for the people who've done it.
Oh yeah, but the fact of the matter is, it's a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cultural thing. We feel like movie theaters are an experience that is completely different from watching movies at home. And to be quite frank, it is. Even now, you don't have a big screen. You don't have massive surround sounds. Some homes do have it, but you got to be very, 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 very wealthy in order to have it.
Well, I mean, that's how movie theaters have been staving off obsolescence for literal decades. Since television became popular.
No, not just television. If you think about it, radio, because
radio was fairly contemporary.
No. The movies started like in the 10s and the 20s. Radio pretty much got big in the 30s and the 40s. That was the first big thing that could have put radio out of business. But they survived that. Then television came along. They survived that. The early internet, they survived for the most part. So it's like, it's all because of the fact that movie theaters and going to a movie theater is an experience, completely different from watching it at home. I mean, pay TV's been around since like the 70s, 80s, pretty much. Not just free television. Not just free television. Free television was one thing. But we're talking like pay TV, like your HBOs, your Cinemaxes, your pay-per-views, and then video on demand in the early 2000s. I mean, movie theaters have basically been built off of successfully, and they still are a completely different experience from watching a movie at home, even in a streaming era.
Well, yeah,
so
they do that.
The fact of the matter is that,
and that's why the blockbuster slate is so contentious, because these are the movies that fuel that experience.
Right. Like we're talking about, Wonder Woman here. You're talking about, yes, Dune. You're talking about, I'm trying to think of some other movies that would be part of that. I think, but yeah, Warner Brothers is a home base for some, at least tentpole films at the very least. And the people who make these films want to be seen in a movie theater. Well, they are filmed to be seen in a movie theater. They are edited and mixed to be seen in a movie theater.
Yeah, another one is Godzilla versus King Kong.
That's the other one, yes.
Which is kind of really designed for a big fucking screen because we're dealing with kaiju the size of buildings.
Right. Kaiju films are specifically made for the theater. But
by the way, this is the specific film that Legendary is legal action over, because apparently Netflix was ready to pay $200 to $250 million for the streaming rights.
$500.
Apparently, some absurd amount here.
Yeah. Netflix was willing to pay a certain amount, and to be fair, Netflix has been willing to put their stuff onto actual movie screens. It's a limited number, but they have been willing to do that because they know for a fact that is part of the deal.
The problem with Netflix is it's more the movie theaters don't like Netflix because they don't.
But the thing about it here is that Warner did not tell Legendary not to talk to Netflix because they wanted it on movie theaters. It looks like now. It looks like to everybody that you told Legendary not to talk to Netflix because you wanted it on your streaming platform and not that one. That's what this is. That's what it looks like. That may not be what it is, but it looks like you told Legendary, that Warner told Legendary not to talk to Netflix, not because they wanted it on movie theaters and that going to Netflix would be a problem with that. No. Warner told Legendary not to talk to Netflix because you wanted it on HBO Max instead of Netflix. Which, of course, leads to the whole, okay, so you didn't want to talk to wanted us to talk to Netflix because you wanted it on your service. Kind of strange. But yeah, I mean, movies overall, really, if you think about it, from the kaiju movies even on down to the small films, they are not made for streaming unless they're specifically for Netflix, specifically for Hulu, specifically for a streaming service. If they're not specifically flagged for a streaming service, they are specifically made for a movie theater, whether it's an AMC or an art house. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. This is also, by the way, why nobody batted an eye when a lot of the second tier stuff went to streaming.
Right.
Like nobody really cared that Scoob was a streaming first thing.
It was a VOD first thing, actually. But yeah,
right. I mean, the point is,
the point is that there's like, some things that it's like, okay, you don't want to delay it further, so you'll put it on VOD and otherwise, and you'll take the hit for that. And really, no one's gonna go up in arms over Scoob, or something smaller. When you're talking about big budget tent poles that are the driving force of theater business throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about Wonder Woman 84, when you're talking about Doom, when you're talking about Godzilla versus Kong, when you're talking about, big like a Batman film, big tentpole films designed specifically to drive people to movie theaters and drive up their business.
Right. Not to mention that, where we, as far as society goes, we're kind of, getting to the end of the tunnel as far as COVID, in the sense that, okay, the vaccines are apparently, there, and they're starting the rollout. Now, how fast that rollout is, we'll see what happens there. Right. But
to be frank, I think that if this was more of a front end of 2021 situation where it was just the movies of, say, Wonder Woman 84 up to maybe May or June, maybe July at the latest, I don't think anybody would really have a problem with that, because everybody expects probably the major vaccinations to start late spring, early summer, maybe, in terms of the overall in terms of the deeper parts of the population, especially for children, So if it was just like the first 4, 5, 6 months of films with this, I don't think it would be as big of a deal. But the fact that you have it all year long, even into Christmas of 21, deeper into 2021, when everybody expects that everybody, or at least enough people, will be vaccinated for somewhat herd immunity, that people will be going out in force, that you're all of a sudden putting a whole year on it. That's, I think, the problem. And I think even though they've said that it's only for 1 year, you can't not all of a sudden think that maybe the executives see the good numbers from these first few films and go, well, we think we should go further with this and go further for the next few years. I mean, you can't trust these executives to look at the numbers and go, we think we're doing the right thing, and go on and say we're going to do it another year. So it's like, but I think the fact is that everybody knows is that the back half of 2021, people will want to go back out into a movie theater. Like, I mean, people right now are protesting the restrictions already. It's like
What?
It's like people have cabin fever. And, that's leading to some very disastrous and costly decisions as we speak right now. So it's like,
I should point out that they're not completely eschewing movie theaters. All of these so far are concurrent releases.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's now a shorter window than what it has been for awful long. It's not 90 days, it's now 30 days. It's now a month, which is shorter. You want to have at least maybe 2 months or 3 months in the movie theater to get as much money as possible out of these. When you go from 3 months to 1 month, that's a lot of money that's left on the table. I mean, towards the end of these windows, it's a couple 100,000, couple tens of thousands, but that's still hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. So it's like, that's a lot of money that's off the table, when you shorten these windows. I get that these windows are probably too long in this day and age, but at the same time, there's a reason they're that long. So it's like, that's why the movie theaters are upset, because it's not just the fact that, they're still in theaters, but it's for a month instead of 3 months.
I should point out also to you that some of the risks that you listed as far as them putting their hopes in HBO Max are somewhat unfounded, because of the fact that I, as a HBO subscriber, get HBO Max as part of my subscription service with Cox Cable.
The problem is
all of the services are offering this same bundle. It basically is automatic, so they already have a built-in client base.
Well, the problem is that they're not catering to you. Let's be fair here. They're not catering to you with this. They're not catering to those that are on what is essentially a free trial, essentially. Like, Disney Plus, the big thing with there was a deal with Verizon. right? It's basically about how do you drive people that are not automatically subscribed to HBO Max, like the non-subscribers. That's what all of these moves are about. Like, yeah, there's a base with HBO subscribers and those with free trials and everything else. I would note that apparently when this move was announced, they also ended the free 7-day free trial for HBO Max for new subscribers.
Of course, that was going to happen.
Right. So it's like these moves are designed.
Disney Plus did the same thing when Hamilton got released.
Right. So it's like this is what it's now about, driving those who are not automatic subscribers to these services. And it's like HBO Max needs to do this big thing here because that's what this is all about, driving people who are not already subscribed, whatever way, to these services. So, but it's like, but yeah, the future of Warner Media is now inexplicably tied to this service now.
Inexplicably or inextricably? Because those are very different kinds of ties.
I think the answer is yes.
Well, yes, the answer is yes. It's both. It's inexplicably tied and it's intrinsically tied. It's like, it's an anchor now for this entire company, whether they like it or not. Because you have a buttload of debt here, you're selling off all of these things, and at the same time, you're putting your entire focus on this service at the expense of everything else. Like, you are now trying to push people onto subscription services, for better or for worse. And it's like, you don't know how this is going to end, but eventually the rubber's going to meet the road. So.
All right.
Well then.
Yeah. Anyway, so
I don't think you should hold back next time, Kevin.
I don't.
No,
I love to go off. It allows
That's
me
the joke.
let it loose.
we noticed.
Love to let it ride, baby. Love to let it ride.
Anyway, so do we want to talk about the Facebook lawsuit before we close out here?
This should be interesting.
Because, like I said, it's just I am really fucking tired of talking about Trump bullshit week in and
This
week
just
out.
in. Politicians noticed how fucking big Facebook is.
Well, it's not just that.
But
the thing is, this is just the latest thing in another thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's like we're gonna cancel Facebook but we're just gonna stay on Instagram.
No, this is actually directly related to that.
The problem is that Facebook owns Instagram and WhatsApp.
I know,
and therefore they're actually asking for Facebook to be broken up.
That's the joke. Go ahead, Adam.
Right. Right. So, the FTC and the attorneys general for 46 states and 2 territories.
Is it all 50 states?
No, it's not all 50.
48 is what I saw.
No, it's 46 states and Puerto Rico and Guam, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or it could be Puerto Rico, Guam, and DC. Point is, it's 48 attorneys general, just not all states.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They have filed 2 lawsuits. The attorneys general and the FTC are separate lawsuits, but they are both aiming at the same thing, and that is the anti-competitive nature of Facebook. This is nothing related to their, mismanagement of anything, and that's not a thing that probably would be ever happening because this is where the First Amendment would actually apply.
Yeah, and you wouldn't probably have a united front like of this magnitude, I think.
Yeah, no, this is about their ownership of WhatsApp, their ownership of Instagram. They're using their influence to smack down competitors. This is all classic.
Of course, Facebook's main defense to this is that they said, well, you said it was okay when I said I was going to buy them. Which, true. Does that mean it's actually okay? No, it means people weren't fucking paying attention.
Right.
Right.
Well, caveat to enter.
Right.
And it's like, let the buyer beware.
And also, this isn't a thing that just happened. Right. Lawsuits this big, you have 48 attorneys generals attached to this from, that's most of the country. That means, most of the country sees this as a problem.
And then you also have the Federal Trade Commission getting involved as well.
Yeah. So
I'm curious about one thing, though. I mean, who wants to fill the void that will be left if Facebook gets broken up? I mean, MySpace is not going to be a thing again, and Parler is a joke.
Well, so... I think Twitter would buy Instagram.
Right, but is that an improvement?
The biggest problem here is that, like I said earlier in this very same program, monopolies are kind of convenient for the consumer.
When it comes to rapid-fire social media, Twitter also has a monopoly on the game. So how is that better?
Well, it would be them going into another property.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if we're breaking up Facebook for being too big, Twitter buying Instagram is not better.
Twitter would only get bigger if it's not everything.
Make the other things exist as their own separate things.
Right. Nobody should be buying them. If we break up Facebook and then get into bed with Twitter, then we're just 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
The problem is that when we're talking about Instagram and WhatsApp, they're two totally different things. Like you could have, for example, Twitter buy Instagram and somebody else buy WhatsApp.
The thing of it is, it's not just Facebook owning these things; it's using its influence.
Right. It's using the fact that they own these things and they are as powerful as they are, and they're using that power to influence policy, not just
policy, but to hurt.
And to hurt other competitors, to be anti-competitive.
And that's actually more in the spirit of the Sherman Antitrust Act. Because guess what? The focus on consumers, that's actually a much more recent idea in the last 50 years. Right. Like Standard Oil was not broken up because of concerns about consumers. Like Planet Money has a really good 3-part series on antitrust in America.
Yeah, that was more the fact that it was so big, it was everywhere. It's not about the consumers weren't a part of that whatsoever.
And this plays into Gauss's treatise on monopolies being convenient for the consumers, because the consumers kind of lost out in the short term when Standard Oil got broken up. Right. But it's more a long-term thing, and yes, it is it'll be a better thing if it's not just Facebook that's being put in the direction of the barrel here. It's Google and it's Amazon as well. Different areas, but all three companies have been looked at and have been dragged before Congress in recent times.
Right. And you can also add another one to that list from the late 90s, early 2000s, Microsoft.
Right. Microsoft was almost going to be broken up into two companies, but then Republicans got into power. And
but still, the fact of the matter is that we have had multiple instances of the past, and right now we're just basically putting that into practice, especially with companies that everybody hates.
Right. That being said, it's this is a lawsuit that's going to take years.
Right.
Years and years to
work. And frankly, I would not be surprised if a Biden DOJ got involved in this too.
Probably.
They would hook onto this with the new Attorney General probably coming in here. So
and
I can see it.
The thing that should have Facebook really concerned is there is bipartisan agreements that Facebook is too big. Maybe this is coming from different directions, but it's like when this many people agree that you're a fucking problem.
Yes, it's some level of function.
That's a problem.
Yeah. What this lawsuit does is basically take Republicans' hatred over content restriction and Democrats' hatred of being too big and put it together as you're too big, break up.
Yeah. So it's not the best of positions for Facebook to be in.
They haven't helped themselves
because you can't necessarily rely in, say, a Republican president coming in 4 years and just reversing this. He or she may have their own problems with Facebook. Maybe, so we'll see what happens, but this is arguably the biggest thing that happened this week in terms of politics.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And just to briefly address the Texas lawsuit. No, this isn't going to fucking go anywhere. Stop panicking. I'm like, it doesn't matter how many.
Your arguments are bad, and may God have mercy on your soul.
It's like I said in the pre-show, the Pennsylvania ruling is kind of a microcosm of what the Supreme Court's general feeling is on this kind of lawsuit.
Everybody has pretty much had enough of this bullshit except for the man in charge, and nobody wants to tell him no, although probably people will start telling him no starting Monday afternoon, Monday evening.
Well, yeah.
It would be nice if the Supreme Court would actually issue a ruling that basically says enough.
Maybe they will on Friday.
Like if they were actually to put out an opinion saying, you know what, no more lawsuits anywhere.
They don't even have to touch it.
Yeah.
Like if they don't touch it on Friday, that's it. It's not happening until Monday. Not happening by Monday, and Monday the Electoral College votes, and that's it.
Nah, he'll just ask them to redo the Electoral College vote.
I still don't. It's like I still don't understand why he
fucking ask.
Well, he won't. Well, he'll obviously do that, but he won't have teeth.
Yeah, and it's like, are you sure that these particular Republican legislatures are in your camp? Or you've definitely pissed off Georgia.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, mine is that all of these red states that filed this friend of the court amicus thing today.
Yeah,
they're not just talking about. This is not just a lawsuit against the Democratic states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. This is also a lawsuit against my state that I'm talking to you from right now, which is a red state with a Republican governor and a Republican lieutenant governor and a Republican attorneys general and a Republican secretary of state and a Republican legislator that is going to reinstitute voter suppressive pieces of legislation next month. So, you're not just going against the blue states that you love to whack like a piñata. You're also going against the red state. So what the heck are you doing?
That you've already offended. That you've already deeply offended.
Yes. It's like, and it's not like the Republicans are going to go back to voter suppression. They've already said they're going to institute voter suppressive tactics next month in the legislature. So it's like, what are you guys doing?
At some point, they're going to suppress so many votes, they'll suppress their own.
Yeah, I mean, they're already talking about they're suppressing vote by mail. We Democrats only did vote by mail this year for a very important reason, is that we did not want to die.
Yeah, normally it's the old people who
the Republicans
get out, and I know that the military is not a block, but there are a significant number of conservative people in the military who are overseas, and they vote by mail. And yes, that's technically slightly different, but not really. And I don't know.
Republican states.
Conspiracy theory who doesn't want to leave his bomb bunker.
There are multiple rural states, which are run by Republicans, that do majority and totally vote by mail every single time. No problems. So it's like, your response to this is to, first of all, bash Georgia around. What?
I heard that, but I didn't hear what it was. Someone say something?
I did not.
I thought I heard Max say something. Anyway, but point of order is that rule state that this whole bashing of you're not just bashing blue states, you're also bashing this state, and that's why this thing is such a mess. And that is why you're seeing John Cornyn come out and say, "What are you doing, Ken Paxton?" And you also see the Utah governor and governor-elect, both Republicans, say to their attorneys general that co-filed that brief, "What are you doing?"
You may not have a job here soon.
Yeah. It's like I'm just sick and tired of obsessing over these lawsuits, to be frank with you.
I find them funny, honestly.
Yeah, I'm just done with everything. I just want this whole thing to be over, and to just everybody just to shut up, because this is just annoying.
Mhm.
At first, it was like panic-inducing, and it's still panic-inducing for some people. To me, it's just like, stop. Just it's not going to change the fact that Joseph R. Biden is the next president of the United States, and you're doing this to appease a man who does not give a single iota of F about you.
Well, so I guess the thing is that the system of politics was designed to be played by, adults who are mature about some things. And it is currently being played by an enormous orange man-child.
And it is co-played by people who are trying to appease said man-child.
Mm-hmm.
And besides, the more important thing we need to worry about right now is Joe Biden tapping more Democratic Congress people for his cabinet when we already have such a slim lead.
Coming from Ocean Blue District, so
true,
it doesn't
but
matter to me.
Luckily, those get special elections. But yeah, we don't want anybody appointed by the governor.
Right. It's more of a case of these are from Ocean Blue districts, and so it'll take care of itself. I'm not worried too much about that, frankly.
Well, Steny Hoyer's an old man too, so.
I don't even know what fucking party he actually is. I just know that he's not a very good ally.
He's the one who's been pushing back against Biden pulling Congress people for his cabinet.
And the fact that Biden's still doing it, you know what that says to him? Tough ass. Get over it. You didn't win the House in the way you thought you would. That's your fault, not Joe's. Joe got his win. You didn't expand your House majority. Too bad. Not his fault. Most of your candidates ran behind him. He doesn't have to answer to you. If you lose the House in 2022, that's your fault, not his.
Yeah, for not getting the backbiting under control. It's like, hey, aren't you Majority Whip?
Yeah.
Aren't you the one who's supposed to, keep the troops in line?
Yeah, whip.
Why don't you worry about your own ass, Steny?
whip your butt into shape. We were a lot be better off if James Clyburn was Majority Whip at this point. He's the reason why Joe Biden's president, and I think that busts Steny's balls a lot. Nancy and James have done a lot more than Steny will ever do in his life.
Like I said, these crusty old fuckers.
Mm-hmm. You just got to deal with them. At least our crusty old people are better than theirs.
There you go.
I'll take a crusty old Democrat over a crusty old Republican any day of the week. Because at least he gives a damn about me.
There
you go.
Anyway, we should probably wrap up.
That's a good place to wrap up.
All right. Wow, that was a hell of a show right there. All right. Be sure to join us next week when I'm sure there'll be more chaos and mayhem on the front. Until then, I'm your host on behalf of the crew at Last Newsdesk on the Left. Thanks for watching.